I don't think we're ever going to go back to the way it was. What we're watching is the acceleration of the disappearance of the middle class.
Why are the middle class disappearing in the UK? We are working more, earning more, but somehow we're still falling behind. That's not by bad luck. That's by bad design.
They don't want you financially secure. They want you trapped, working, spending, paying taxes, repeating.
The only way out of this is if we tax the rich properly, but that's just not going to happen because they're in power. It's not in their interests. They don't want to get taxed. They don't want equality. They just want massive inequality.
Bills have gone up, rent's gone up, wages have flatlined. Middle class isn't moving up. It's being squeezed out.
And personally, I feel like that's what the government should be focusing on. How do you build a strong middle class? How do you allow small businesses to grow? How do you give people more like disposable income?
Why the UK is bringing in so many immigrants literally has to do with the UK trying to eliminate middle class. They literally just want to have rich people and poor people. They don't want to have a middle.
Let's face it, if somebody's rich, they don't need help. They're doing just fine. And matter of fact, money can create money. So the middle class, though, they're the ones that had the empty refrigerators. They were working crazy hours, trying to make ends meet, racking up the debt.
We just have debt over debt over debt. And you look at the people in charge, they keep dangling growth like it's a carrot, and you look at it and there's just no growth whatsoever.
How can I afford to get that fixed, man? £11.44 an hour. Yeah, that's embarrassing. Just send me my coffin. Just send it me now. Where's the urn?
Once upon a time, being middle class in Britain meant some security. A home you could afford, a car that wasn't breaking down every week, a family holiday, and maybe a pension to look forward to. Now, the middle class is on life support. You're working full-time, maybe even juggling 2 jobs, but still struggling to cover the basics. Your rent or mortgage eats half your pay, your energy bills are a second job, and saving, that's a fantasy. One broken boiler or dental bill away from total chaos. Meanwhile, MPs are talking about fiscal responsibility while claiming £400 for office plants. The ultra-rich keep getting richer, and the rest of us, the squeezed middle, are being drained dry with no lifeline in sight. The middle class isn't shrinking, it's vanishing. Today on Brit Rants, we're tearing the mask off this crisis. TikTok is flooded with stories of families falling through the cracks, professionals relying on food banks, and people who did everything right, now wondering where it all went wrong. If you're done with the lies, done with the struggle, and ready to call this mess out, hit subscribe. Let's get into it.
I don't think we're ever going to go back to the way it was. What we're watching is the acceleration of the disappearance of the middle class. 30 years we've been saying that there's a disappearance of the middle class, that there are programs and social structure to take care of people who are poverty, housing programs, food programs, monthly cash assistance programs, phone programs. And I'm not disrespecting anybody, hopefully, by saying that, but there's just programs for people who are below poverty. And let's face it, if somebody's rich, they don't need help. They're doing just fine. And matter of fact, money can create money. So the middle class, though, they're the ones that had the empty refrigerators. They were working crazy hours, trying to make ends meet, racking up the debt. And what we're watching right now is the accelerated disappearance of that middle class, where I think you're going to see either poverty people or wealthy people, and not a lot of in between.
Why are the middle class disappearing in the UK? We are working more, earning more, but somehow we're still falling behind. That's not by bad luck. That's by bad design. Bills have gone up, rent's gone up, wages have flatlined. Middle class isn't moving up. It's being squeezed out. BlackRock have announced that they're going to come in and they're going to invest in the UK housing market, and they're going to spend £10 billion buying up all the middle class houses. That means that people now going to buy a house are going to be unlikely that they're able to do it because the deposit's going to be so high, which means that they're going to have to rent. And who do they rent from? They rent from the elite or the billionaires like BlackRock. Not middle class, you're middle trapped. Just look at all the direct debits we've got. We've got car payments, we've got mortgage payments, we've got Netflix, we've got gym memberships, we've got council tax, we've got electric, we've got Disney Plus, we've got Amazon Prime, we've got every single direct debit going imaginable. And by the way, people have 2 cars on the drive. We just have debt over debt over debt. And you look at the people in charge, they keep dangling growth like it's a carrot. And you look at it and there's just no growth whatsoever. And basically, if you're not investing in assets and you just have savings, which if you have a majority of money in savings, or if you're even in a worse scenario and you've got debt, it's like, how do you get out of it? What we need is to invest in assets which go up in value over time. And also, to do this, it seems like we have to do it outside of our 9 to 5, because our 9 to 5 wages is just covering the bills. There's not a lot of money left over. So basic stuff, live below your means. Question if you actually need 2 cars. Do you need Netflix? Do you need the gym membership? Have you actually assessed your direct debits? And get rid of any unwanted spending. Saving £200 is easier than earning £200. And you'll probably be really surprised over how much you can actually save if you look into it. Now, if you look into it and you can't save any, then you're going to have to increase your working hours or get a different job. It's brutal, but it's the truth. Comment below if this is how you feel, or follow the page.
The middle class is dying. And here's why. There was a time when one salary could buy a home. It could raise a family. It could fund a comfortable retirement. But that life is gone. It is no more. House prices are through the roof. Interest rates are sky high. Food, fuel, energy, everything's more expensive. But your wages have barely moved. The average person today is earning less than they were in real terms than they were 20 years ago. But here's the part that no one talks about. This isn't an accident. The middle class was never built to last. It was a temporary illusion of security because the system is designed to divide you. You either own assets, property, investments, businesses, and you build wealth, or you own nothing and you work for wages and you slowly fall behind. And right now they're making sure you stay in that second group. Home ownership's, you're getting priced out. Cost of living is rising faster than pay is, and taxes are up, pensions are vanishing. And the middle class was built on an affordable ownership. Now, what is it? It's all renting. It's subscriptions. It's lifetime payments. They don't want you financially secure. They want you trapped, working, spending, paying taxes, repeating. Unless you break the cycle and start owning assets, you are not going to get ahead.
The reason that the UK is taking so many immigrants is not because they're trying to be good people or anything like that. And I can't believe that the bigoted people in the UK still don't understand why the UK is bringing in so many immigrants. Literally has to do with the UK trying to eliminate middle class. They literally just want to have rich people and poor people. They don't want to have a middle. And immigrants is exactly how they're going to do it, because they're going to bring in these people from third world countries that will accept very low salaries and work very long hours and will do the jobs that British people in the UK would never do. And because they're accepting these minuscule wages, they will be making the rich people so much money. Have you ever seen a rich British person ever complain about immigrants? They would never complain about it because they know at the end of the day it's going to benefit them.
The middle class in this country is disappearing. Here's why. Don't know if you guys have noticed, but the middle class in this country is slowly disappearing, emerging with the working class. Amidst a massive housing crisis in the UK, particularly in London, people just cannot afford to buy a house. People can't afford assets. The rich are getting richer and richer. They're buying assets, and it's making it more difficult for the average person, middle class and working class, but particularly the middle class, who are getting squeezed. It's now near on impossible for the average person to buy a property without help from bank of mum and dad or massive inheritance. So what's happening is the middle class are saving, but they're not saving enough. They're not able to buy house prices. So they're saving, but the house prices are going up further than what people can save. So in 5 to 10 years, this is my prediction, I don't believe there is going to be a middle class. I think there's going to be an upper class and there's going to be a working class. About 20, 30, 40 years ago, working class people and middle class people could work a standard job and on one income were able to get on the property ladder. What's happening nowadays is parents are getting older. They're selling their houses to pay for their retirement and elderly care. And that's leaving young people without any inheritance. So without that, they're finding it very, very difficult to get on the housing ladder, and they're in fact unable to buy property. Without property or assets, you constantly have to go to the rich to rent off them and to buy their products just to survive. And as your wage increases have no chance in hell of catching up with the massive increase in inflation and rise in price of these assets, you're basically doomed. So my prediction is in the next 5 to 10 years, anyone who's middle class is going to seep into the working class. And unless you can buy assets, you're basically screwed. The only way out of this is if we tax the rich properly, but that's just not going to happen because they're in power. It's not in their interests. They don't want to get taxed. They don't want equality. They just want massive inequality. So it pains me to say it, but if you cannot afford to buy assets, you will forever be playing catch up. But let me know what you guys think. Is there a way we can solve this? Drop your comments below.
Right, why is minimum wage even a thing? Don't look at my damp patches. But you know what? I actually do look at my damp patches because I'm on minimum wage. How the can I stop? Right, it's actually really bad now. How can I afford to get that fixed, man? £11.44 an hour. Yeah, that's embarrassing. What is even his minimum wage? What, you gonna bump it up? Oh, that 40p is gonna really help me out. My rent is more than my monthly income. No, seriously though, how do people actually afford to live in the UK? I don't even have children. Well, I do have two really furry, hairy children. I have two cats, obviously. But, bro, I don't drive. I can't afford to drive. I can't buy a house because I can't afford that shit either. Just send me my coffin. Just send it me now. Where's the urn? Not the urn. The cowboy. I can't do this.
You have to shift the tax system. We have a tax system which taxes ordinary working people 30, 40, 50, 60%, while people like the Duke of Westminster can inherit £10 billion and pay nothing. If you do that, wealth will be sucked out of the middle class. It's already been completely bankrupted the working class. It will bankrupt the government, which is what we are seeing. And there'll be poverty. There'll be broad poverty. There'll be no middle class left. Why are we taxing working people more than billionaires? Tax wealth, not work. Give these people a break. Give their kids a chance. Tax the billionaires. Of course you should.
Poor are getting richer and richer and richer, and that is why the middle class in the UK feel the squeeze. In Vietnam, over the last 10 years, wages have gone up 63.5%. In Poland, since 2017, wages have gone up 44%. Often we have the habit to compare wages in our own country and we feel that people are getting worse and worse off. But as a global population, the poor are getting wealthier. And part of the challenge that we're now facing in the UK, and the reason why people on low incomes or reliant on the welfare state feel the pinch, and the middle class, is that we have benefited from neo-colonialism since the 1940s to recently the present day. And it's been the fact that people around the world have been willing to work for £1 a day that we have benefited from our supplies, from our goods, from our clothing, from our food, from the cost of building houses, from the raw materials. We have lived in a cheap economy because we have worked on the backs of others. And those others in the developing nations are catching up. Those BRICS nations are catching up. And we are feeling the pinch because of it. The temptation is to blame one another, but we also have to wake up and realize that we're no longer as far ahead economically as those other nations, and as an effect of which, we're feeling a lot poorer.
Morning guys, I haven't done a video on the housing crisis for a while, but it's a subject that's close to my heart. Still, I think it's an unresolved issue and it's going to continue to get worse. So I thought, let's talk about this a little bit, and especially because I just caught up with some friends, and one of them, he really hit it home for me again that, this is an ongoing problem and it's not going to go away. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse. So his situation, right? I don't know what his salary is, but I imagine it's somewhere between 50 and 70k. So let's say it's right in the middle. So 60k, right? If I say to you, oh, he's on 60 grand, you might think, wow, that's pretty good. Yeah, he's on especially when you consider the average salary in London is probably like, 35k? I think that's about accurate. He's on double that. So you'd be getting connotations of like middle class living. I bet he goes skiing. I bet he drives a BMW. I bet he's got a couple of buy-to-let investments off in, Maidenhead or High Wycombe or something. But the reality is actually quite different. It's, he's on 60 grand a year. He's renting a one-bed flat. That's £1,250 a month. 1,250 quid a month, right, in London. Now you might say, well, he doesn't have to, he should house share. Well, he's knocking on 30. At what age are we expecting people to show autonomy and responsibility and gain some sort of independence? If you tell me, if I'm 30 and you say, live in a house, I don't want to live in a studenty house share and pick up after people and see they're washing up in it. I want some independence, right? So he's living in this £1,250 a month one bed flat. Then he's got bills on top. You've got council tax, 150, say. Then you've got energy bills. That's going to be 200 quid a month, probably come next April. Then you've got his Oyster card. He's got to get into the office 1 day a week. Then you've got this shit and that. Before we have done existing, he's up to like 2 grand, 2,200 probably a month. That is a chunk off of his salary gone. Now, he might have like 800 quid left over or a grand left over every month. And he could put that into an ISA, a property ISA or whatever. But to buy one of those flats that he lives in, a 1-bed flat is like £400,000. 400 grand! So for him to get on the ladder in that same shit that he's renting, he has to, if you cut it like by 4, then that's probably the deposit. So 100 grand. Let's say it's a little bit less punishing than that, and it's actually 80 grand deposit that he would have to save. £80,000. He'd have to go through all like, put another 500 quid in the savings ISA. Okay, here's another 5. How long is it going to take him to save £80,000? You see why this is so that somebody on a pretty good salary in London stands almost no chance unless they go down some shitty Help to Buy route. It's so.
How much do you think that you would need in your area, wherever that is, to live a good middle class lifestyle? And by that, I guess we're talking about a few holidays a year, a decent house, nothing stupidly extravagant, but just to have a good standard of living where you can go out for dinner a few times a month, you can like buy yourself a few coffees without feeling awful and without it draining your bank account. How much do you need to earn nowadays in 2025? Because I feel like this number, whatever it is, just keeps on spiraling. And you know, when I was growing up, earning £90,000, I mean, admittedly for one person rather than as a household income, but £90,000 like was a lot of money. And now it does feel a little bit like that is not going to get you very far. And I am in London, so you know, our perspective down here is probably skewed. I mean, I know it is, but £90,000 should still be a reasonable amount of money, and it's just not anymore. So let me know.
So I'm not an economist or anything like that, but a thought that I just had this morning is, why don't we have a strong middle class in the UK anymore? And for me personally, I feel like a good economy relies on having a good middle class. And by middle class, I mean, you know, you can afford a house, maybe you have 1 or 2 extra like for rental income. You don't need to finance a car really. You don't need to finance a holiday. You have a lot of disposable income, right? But the wealth gap in the UK is widening literally every single day to the point where you have such a small concentration of people that have such a large amount of wealth. And if those people then don't like your new tax regime and they want to leave the UK, they're taking all of that wealth that should have been spread out. They're now taking that and leaving. And to me, it's literally putting all of your eggs in one basket, right? And I think when the strong middle class is present, people have that disposable income that can then push into things like the high street, you know, local businesses, small businesses. They have a lot more money to spend. They have a lot more money to feel relaxed. And I feel like that's just the major issue in the UK now. And I don't know if other people have different opinions, but for me personally, I feel like that's what the government should be focusing on, right? Like, I hear the whole corporations give jobs to loads of people, but again, those jobs are concentrated in pretty much London, Birmingham, Manchester, Cardiff, you know, Edinburgh. Even those other like Cardiff and Edinburgh, they don't really see as much as, even Birmingham and Manchester, they don't see as much as London. Everyone wants to be in London, makes London much more expensive, whereas in the past, you'll hear stories of people, you know, there's a factory in somewhere like Derby or something like that, and the people there will have good lives, right? But we don't see that anymore. And personally, I feel like that's what the government should be focusing on. How do you build a strong middle class? How do you allow small businesses to grow? How do you give people more like disposable income, right? And maybe it's their plans, I don't know, right? But that's just my opinion. I feel like you need a strong middle class in order to have a really strong economy that's on a good foundation. But that's just my opinion.
The middle class are the most affected in a recession. In good times, they're the ones that are most likely not to invest their money properly. They're the ones that are most likely going out and splashing out because, they make a bit of money. Some of them even start to feel like they're in the upper class of society in terms of economics. And they're the ones that tend to make the mistake of falling for the fear and greed cycle. And every recession, money and funds and wealth gets pulled back from middle class and sent back to the upper class and the rich because they understand how the process works. Now, the rich, they're so rich, they can afford to spend money at any time. Whenever the economy is booming or whether the economy is in a recession, people that are uber rich, it doesn't matter to them. Their wealth doesn't depend on the economy. Their wealth depends on their wealth. It just continues to make money. In fact, they tend to do better in a recession because that's when they invest in things at really low prices, and they can end up selling when the price goes skyrocketing if they want to. The working class and the poor always suffer. It doesn't matter if the economy is booming or we're in a recession. In fact, during a recession, people who are in the working class who are poor already sort of know what to do. They've always suffered anyway. So, it's nothing new. It's the middle class. That's where the problem lies.
Hi folks, so I was watching a documentary about poverty in the UK and Great Britain, and these statistics will absolutely blow your mind. Now, considering we're meant to be one of the richest countries in the world, about 18% of people in the UK are living in extreme poverty, which I think is absolutely disgusting. There's around 25% of children also living in extreme poverty, and there's around 18% of people in the UK relying on food banks. Now, why, when we're meant to be one of the richest and most lavish countries in the world, is this happening? Now, I know this has got a lot worse since COVID. The gap between rich and poor has got astronomical. And I think a lot of this is due to the fact that jobs don't pay a living wage. Jobs have not kept up with inflation. The house prices in the UK have got totally out of control, especially in London, areas around London. Getting on the property ladder, unless you're earning about £100,000 or £150,000 a year, is absolutely impossible. And I just think, the way this country is going is absolutely disgusting. And I can see why people get fed up, why they get depressed, because the world our parents lived in the 70s and 80s, not saying that they had it easy, of course they didn't, but, house prices weren't as bad as what they were. It was slightly easier to get a mortgage. And a mortgage was only 3 to 4 times your yearly salary, not 10 to 15 times like you'd be looking at now. Now, especially with Labour coming in, what they've done with, they're going to be putting taxes up next year, and they're going to be making, transport's going to be going up, there's going to be a food tax. I don't blame people for being depressed. I don't blame people for feeling fed up. I don't know what the future of this country is going to hold. All I know is things are going to get hard for all of us. The standard of living is going to go down. Do you know anyone who struggled, guys? Let me know what you think in the comments. Since COVID, has your life maybe got worse? Has your cost of living got out of control? Are you finding it much harder to make ends meet? I just really don't know what the future holds for this country and our future generations. I just feel really sorry for young people growing up because they haven't got much to look forward to. A lot of them probably won't be able to afford their own houses, and life's going to be a lot harder for them. Yeah, let me know what you think in the comments, guys. I'll be interested to hear what people think.
I read a quote today that shocked me. It was about how the average UK family is not existing. So 2 parents working, when you take away the cost of their house or where they live, food, childcare and bills, they are more than £100 in debt every month. 2 parents working, so average 2 average wages coming into the family. Now, that just is so heartbreaking that that's the current situation that we're in right now. And I haven't spoken that openly about our own financial situation. Obviously, it's very personal, but earlier this year, we were also struggling. We have a bigger mortgage, we had more outgoings, and we had to really tighten the belt buckle, and my husband's work dried up because of he's a contractor and it's the state of his industry at the moment. Everyone is being extra cautious about extra resource, so we really felt the pinch. Now, I have said before that I cannot earn any more than I'm currently earning in my corporate career, so give or take £5,000 or £10,000. I have been on the same wage for around about 15, 20 years. Now, I think for a career and a person that has 2 degrees and 2 diplomas, that's insane. So obviously, if I want to move up the food chain, and don't get me wrong, I do not want my boss's job at all, or his life, I will need to do longer hours. I will need to do things that I don't particularly want to do. I will need to travel more, and essentially I'll have way more responsibility. Now, that would be at the detriment and to the sacrifice of my health, both my physical and mental health, because I'm struggling now to find balance with my children and my job and my business and my husband. And it would also be at the sacrifice of my physical health and time with my children, time with my family, which is my number one priority. So health and family are my number one priorities. And where does the money come from? So this year, while I was studying, the reason why I started my business was for that reason. We didn't have the money sitting around for the business. That is why I begged, borrowed, still made it happen, found the money to start my business so that I could start generating more income into my household, into my family, to support my family. And I did a masterclass on this last night, and I really spoke deeply into it. We all did, the women, the corporate women on this masterclass, who are all in the same boat. They're all earning good money, a couple earning good money and still just surviving, not thriving, surviving financially, surviving in their life. And so, yeah, this masterclass, we spoke about how you can generate more income, how you can bring more money into the house, how you can do this alongside your corporate job, in the pockets of your time, 1 to 2 hours a day, maybe, on the weekend, if that's when you have some time, to be able to generate more income, to be able to ease up your financial situation, to be able to create more choice in your life. And then also, if you would like to replace that corporate income, to exceed that corporate income. And Sarah last night, my mentor, the reason why I jumped into this business is because she has now, in the past 18 months, not just replaced, she has surpassed her corporate income. I mean, mind blown. So that is the opportunity we have at our fingertips. That is the opportunity that we have with high ticket affiliate marketing. I now have the replay from last night. So if you are feeling the pinch, if any of this resonates with you, if you just don't have enough at the end of the month to make ends meet, if you are surviving, you literally are paying for everything, but there's nothing left over to enjoy your life. If you want to create a bigger vision for your life, you're sick of living paycheck to paycheck, living for the 9 to 5, all the things like I am. There is a beautiful big bunch of very smart, savvy, switched on, sophisticated, fiery, amazing women who are doing this. We are doing this together. So if you want to run alongside me, if you would like to create more choice in your life, if you do, because a lot of the comments on the posts that I read where this information came from, a lot of the mums were saying, we both work full time and we're just scraping by, and all I want to do is have more time with my child, do the school runs, pick him up from school. So if this is you, I'm speaking to you. If you would like to learn more about what I'm doing, what we're doing in our collective, how we are bringing more income into our family, how we are helping ease financial burden in our households and creating some incredible income with this opportunity, send me a message on Instagram, DM me on Instagram, you'll see my details there, or add me as a friend and send me a message on TikTok, replay, and I will send you the replay from last night's masterclass where we talk into all of this and about creating more choice in your life to create a life that you'll never want to have a holiday from, where you're earning incredible income, and where you literally are thriving. Thanks, guys.
That's the truth they don't want you to see. The middle class is vanishing right before our eyes. Not because people stop working hard, not because we're lazy, but because the system's been rigged, slowly, deliberately, to funnel more wealth upwards and leave the rest of us scrambling. You do everything right. Get a job, pay your taxes, save when you can. But now even that isn't enough. Owning a home is a fantasy, having savings is a luxury, and retiring? Forget it. Meanwhile, MPs claim expenses for sky-high lunches while telling you to budget better. This isn't a cost of living crisis anymore. It's a cost of survival crisis. And the middle is getting squeezed until there's nothing left. If you feel like you're shouting into the void, you're not. There are millions of us going through the same struggle, and it's time our voices got louder. So hit subscribe, join the Brit Rants community, and let's make sure they hear us. We're not going down without a fight.